Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of jakestake.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. Now, before we get started today, if you're watching this on video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And if you're listening to this on any of the audio platforms, thank you so much. And please subscribe and give me consider giving a 5-star review. I'm very honored and privileged to have this reality TV OG on the podcast. He started off one of the original Real World cast members of Real World Los Angeles. Then he came and appeared on The Challenge, and more recently, you were able to see him back with a majority of his Real World castmates on the latest season of the second season of Homecoming, which is airing on Paramount Plus. So please help me, and he's also a country singer. So please help me welcome Mr. Jon Brennan to the podcast.
How are we doing? Thanks for having me.
It's a privilege to talk with you, Jon. It's an honor to have an OG here.
I am old. I'm very old. Actually,
Jon, you're not that old.
I turned 48 years old next Saturday, so I'm getting older and G-er.
Awesome. So it is personal. We got to give out a big shout out to our mutual friend Mike Lewis because he has helped. Because the thing is, he helped connect us, and I want to give him a huge shout out. And he actually is probably one of the best when it comes to the podcasting, when it comes to reality TV. So I got to give him a huge shout out.
You know, he does a great job, and he gets a lot of guests. And I've been on twice with him. We actually have become friends. I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, and we hung out. So he's a great young man, and he does a good podcast. I'm glad he hooked up. He connected us up, so that's great.
Awesome. I want to make sure to give credit when credit is due, Mike. So I appreciate you, Mike. So let's get started to the way beginning. So when did you get interested in auditioning for the Real World? And what was your reaction when you found out that you'd be joining the sophomore season of the show?
Yeah, so I was never interested in auditioning for the Real World. I never auditioned for the Real World. I don't know the age demographic of who listens to your podcast, but if they're old and they remember 1992, that was the year when I graduated high school. It was the year that they did the first Real World in New York. And the first Real World in New York was the very first reality show ever. So country music was hugely popular. Garth Brooks, Alan Jackson, Travis Tritt, all of these. Even people that didn't like country music were buying country music records, CDs, back when they made tapes and CDs still in 1992. I was, like I said, a senior in high school. And they decided, hey, for our next season, we're going to do it in Los Angeles. We got to have a aspiring country music singer. So let's go to Nashville. And that's where they found me as a freshman in college in downtown Nashville, looking like this. And they said, hey, you want to be on this show called The Real World on MTV? We just did it in New York. Surely you saw it. And I said, no, didn't see it. And they said, yeah, they live in this big loft together and they interact and we film it and then put it on MTV. I'm like, that sounds a little lame, to be honest, but, tell me more. And they're like, well, you're perfect. I'm like, well, I'm not an actor. See, I'm a singer. They're like, I know, we want a country music singer, blah, blah, blah. Country's what's really big in entertainment right now. So they actually approached me and said, would you, consider this? And I told them no, to be really honest. I said, no, I'm a freshman in college. I'm in Nashville. This is where all of my dreams are. The show, it doesn't sound like it's going to work or be around very long. And I told them no. And they said, you're perfect. I'm like, no, I'm not perfect. First of all, I'm conservative. Second of all, I'm a Christian. Third of all, I'm 18 years old. I just graduated high school. And they said, you are perfect. I'm like, I don't think so. And then Mary Ellis Bunham, who's gone. She's not with us anymore. Bless her heart. Was so nice to me. She called me on the phone. She's the co-creator of reality TV. She and John Murray. And she said, Jon, have you ever thought about how this kind of exposure on a television show like this on MTV, which was, hugely popular in the 90s. Okay. Not so much anymore. I'm a youth pastor. I'm like, hey guys, I was on MTV. And they're like, lame. I'm like, no, it's really used to be cool back a long time ago. But she said, this could help your career. Think about all the exposure you're going to have. Think about how famous you'll be. And I thought, that is half the battle. But being a singer is getting your name out there and getting people to know who you are. So tell me more about the beach house in Los Angeles. And so long story short, I didn't apply. They came and found me, and that's how they found Puck for the next season. They knew they were doing it in San Francisco, and they knew they wanted a bike messenger. So instead of having people apply, they went to bike messengers and said, you know, would you like to be on this show? Let us find the most interesting bike messenger in San Francisco. So not everybody that was on the Real World applied. They kind of have a few ideas of what they want, and they go find those people. So Tammy, I didn't know this, but Tammy, my roommate, revealed to us either at the homecoming or in an interview I saw recently where she had gone to a Real World audition with a friend and had no intentions of auditioning. And while she's standing in line, just, while her friend was just waiting to be interviewed and audition, that's when the producers were like, "Hey, are you here to audition?" She's like, "No, I'm just here with my friend." They're like, "Well, let's talk to you." And she's like, "No." And, again, you're perfect. You're what we want.
It's amazing because I listen to a lot of what Mike Lewis, about what Mike's podcast, and even Scott and Derek, another with Challenge Mania, giving them another shout out as well. And it's amazing to hear that originally that you guys did not have any desire, and all of a sudden they picked you out.
Well, the Real World, we're in all of reality TV. I got to sing on the Grand Ole Opry last Friday night, and I'm an OG. So a lot of the people didn't know who I was when they introduced me. I went out and I said, "Hey, so before there was Survivor and before there was the Kardashians, there was the Real World on MTV." And then the crowd was like, "Oh my goodness, it's Jon from the Real World. That's who this is." So then it clicked for them. But we have, 38 seasons of the Real World now. But back then, no one knew what the Real World was. We had one, we had two, and it got hugely popular by seasons 4 and 5, but or really 3, 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, on up to 10. But the Real World, everybody knows what it is now, but back then nobody had a clue what it was. So when you say we're going to live in a house together and there's not going to be a script, you're going to just interact and we're going to film it, that sounds really dull. I mean, right? It doesn't sound cool. But when you understand that everybody that's in the house is drastically different and ready to fight and argue at the drop of a hat, then you make good television.
Absolutely. And also congratulations with the Grand Ole Opry. That must have been an amazing moment for you.
It was a dream. They called me on a Tuesday, okay? And they said, "Would you like to sing on Friday night?" So I've waited 35 years of my life to sing on the Grand Ole Opry. And then I had about 3 days notice. So I was ready. I hope I get to do it a lot more. It was a huge honor, probably the biggest honor that a country music singer could ever have.
And I could just imagine taking it all in on that stage and seeing all those people.
It was amazing. I've sang in front of larger crowds, but I've never sang in such a, they call it the Mother Church of country music. I mean, it's the biggest honor there is. To be invited to sing on the Grand Ole Opry is the biggest thing that a country music singer could ever be asked to do. So it was a highlight, and I hope it's not the highest light. I hope I get to go back and do a lot more because, I've got some recent music out, and I hope to make a lot more and to get out on the road and do what I love to do.
We'll get to the music because it's great, and we'll get to that in a second. But however, we've got to get through the reality TV portion of it. So 17 years later, after the Real World Los Angeles aired, you were reunited with the majority of your castmates for the second season of Real World Homecoming. So
wait. Not 17 years. No. It was 29 years, almost 30 years.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. If it was 17 years, I wouldn't have been this puffy on TV. I would have been slim and
I apologize about that. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no. Hey, listen, I was on the Real World. You can't offend me, okay? But it puts a whole different spin on it when you think about, hey, we're talking about like 30 years. I mean, 17 years would have been a long time too, but almost 30 years. We reunited in the same exact house with the same exact people and hashed through some of the same exact topics.
So what did it mean what did it mean to see the fans' reaction? Because you had some really good people. You had Tammy, and then Beth came back. So a lot of incredible conversations.
Yeah, I mean, when you say the name Tammy and when you say the name Beth, you immediately are talking about some pretty dynamic people. Okay, every single person that lived in the house was a type A. All right, including me. I mean, I used to wonder, why'd they put plain old me in that house with these crazy people? And then I realized one day, Jon, you're very unique yourself, bud. Like you are a type A, you wear a cowboy hat, you're conservative from the South. Like you're a freak of nature too. So, we were so vastly different that, that's what caused the fireworks. And that's what the producers knew was going to happen. If you put these people that are so different and very strong willed and very adamant about their mindset and opinions, which all of us are, including myself, put them in a house and they're going to have conversations, it's going to get explosive. And so, 29 years later, we're in the same house. They're showing clips from when we lived in that house that were explosive clips and very memorable episodes of a show that aired on MTV for 10 years. I mean, literally, I say before there was the Kardashians, there was the Real World. In the 90s, I couldn't go anywhere without somebody going, "You're the guy from the Real World. Can I get a picture with you?" And, there was a lot of fame attached to that. Now that's all gone. I go anywhere I want without anybody saying anything to me now. Nobody recognizes. Sometimes just every so often somebody go, "Are you Jon from the Real World?" I'm like, "Yes, I am. Yes, I am." It feels good to be recognized. But it was crazy. I mean, it's almost like a dream. It's been almost a year. We filmed that in August. It didn't start to air until November, but in August, just not very many days away from now, August 11th, I believe, we moved back into the house. So we're talking about it was almost a year ago, and it feels like a month ago. Really does.
So what is your reaction when you have like not just the original people that watch it, but this time their friends, their siblings, some even their children or nieces or nephews?
That are viewers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of people that email me or on social media contact me and say, "Hey, I'm watching your series that I watched when I was a 20-year-old. I'm watching it on Paramount Plus with my children," and I'm thinking, "Why are you doing that?" But they're like, "This was such a huge part of our entertainment when we were growing up. We want them to see, and now that you've done this reunion, we want to, we want our kids to see it and see what they think." And I don't have any children biologically. I have a lot of kids I pour into and mentor, but my brother has teenagers, my sister has teenagers, and they're like, "You were kind of famous on a reality show." I'm like, "I was very famous on a reality show. Yes, it was crazy." And they don't see me in that light. So, I'm just Uncle Jon at the Thanksgiving table. But the 90s were nuts. The 90s were nuts. So you get a lot of a lot of people say, "I know you," and I'm like, "How old are you?" And if they're anywhere between 35 and 55, they were a Real World Los Angeles viewer.
I'm sorry, I am getting close. I'm in my mid 30s, just to let you know, 34 of September. So, but unfortunately, I did not have the chance to watch your season when it was airing.
Because you were 5, and
Yes. And I don't think my folks would allow me to do that.
well, when they first asked me if I wanted to be on the Real World on MTV, I said no. They said, "You saw the first show we did in New York." I said, "No, my parents have MTV blocked from our house. We don't even have MTV in our home, because of all the stuff that was coming out on there was not all the time appropriate."
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, so while we're on the subject, Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus has found success with the Challenge All Stars and has brought back winners, runner-ups, fan favorites, and alumni to compete. Would you be interested in coming up on season 4?
Listen, I don't know who watches your podcast, and I'm known for being a pretty nice, civil guy, right? I mean, I don't know what your thoughts were about me, but I'm getting ready to, as we say here in the South, I'm finna be a little direct, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I started the challenge. Okay, I don't know if everybody knows the history of the challenge, but what they did is they took Eric Nies from the first Real World, they took me from the second Real World, Rachel from San Francisco third season, and they took Cynthia from the Miami season of the Real World, and Sean from the Boston season of the Real World. They picked the 5 of us, and we did what they called Road Rules All Stars, and it was the first challenge ever. And then I was on the 5th challenge, Battle of the Seasons, and I was on the 10th challenge, the Inferno II. So I've been on seasons 1, I've been on seasons 5 and 10 of the challenge. And they all very well know that I would like to be on the Challenge All Stars. Now, they have called me 3 times for the Challenge All Stars. to see if I'd be interested and available. And every single time I've said yes. I've been wanting to be on these challenges. I started these challenges. Quite frankly, they're a little dull without me. Okay. And yes, put me on the challenge. And almost to the point where they're tired of hearing that from me. So, Mark Long, I tweet him and text him all the time. Mark wants me on. So he's a great guy, and I congratulate him with the huge success of the All-Stars. But they know I won on the challenge. But I'm a little miffed, if you can't tell already. They keep putting the same people on the challenge until they win. And I'm friends with Brad, and I'm friends with Derek, and I'm friends with Mike the Miz, and I'm friends with CT. I almost like those people. Okay, I'm just going to tell you. But I don't want to see their face on every stinking challenge. Why should they get to be on until they win? Season after season after season after season until they win. I think it's bullcrap, to be honest with you. Some of these people have been on 15, 20 challenges. And then when they call you to be on a challenge, you know what they say? Well, we're going to pay you this because you haven't been you've only been on 3. My friend Beth, who was my roommate on The Real World, has been on many challenges. And they pay her way more than they would pay me because she's been on a bunch of them. But they don't pay her what they pay the other people because the other people been on. And it's not fair to pay them because they keep getting cast. It's like, I want to be on. I'm not telling you no. Don't penalize me because you haven't cast me. Anyway, I'm a little sore about it because, of course, these people are going to eventually win the big money when they're on it 29 times in a row. I mean, and I just, as a viewer, feel like you're going to call it the OG challenge and you're going to have the All-Stars. Go back and get some of the true OGs. Get Eric Nies. Get Jon Brennan. Get Rachel Campos-Duffy. Get Osiris is my boy. And I'm glad to see him and Beth back on there. But these people that are on all the time, like season after season, they're riding my coattails. I'm getting a little tired of it. And if I ever get back on that challenge, they're going to find out how mean and nasty that nice boy from Kentucky can be.
And I will be cheering you on.
I'm so tired of all these muscleheads out there taking steroids and getting on the challenge all the time. Yeah, I'm fed up and I'm mad. I'm mad. So here's the thing. All right, here's the thing. That's what I always say. So Tammy and Dominic and I got in a Winnebago at my house in Kentucky, and we drove to Los Angeles. Okay, and that's when they got the idea for, oh my goodness, this little Winnebago trip that they took could be a whole show, and they started Road Rules. Okay, so I started Road Rules. I was on season 1 of the challenge. I started the challenge. And let's just be real. I started the Real World too because the New York season really sucked. Okay. So there's your soundbite.
Awesome. All righty. Thank you for bringing the fire, John.
Yeah, you didn't know you was going to get all that, did you?
No, I did not. This was the fire I needed. So I really hope and pray that Mark Long is watching this or listening to this because you, my friend, need to be on it because I love Derek to pieces. But
I love him too.
And I like Brad. And
I like him too.
But the thing is, they need to take a little rest.
They need to take a little rest. Yeah, they need to take a little rest. Yes, they do. And Mark would cast me. He's not in charge of casting. Okay, Mark has pitched my name out there several times, so I'll give credit to Mark. Because I know he's pushed for me and continues to push for me to be part of it. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows Mark's on my side with that.
Awesome, John. Awesome. So let's get started. Let's leave reality TV and talk about music.
Oh, okay.
So what have been some of the challenges that you faced breaking into the music industry? And how did you overcome those obstacles?
Well, one big challenge was this. When I got done with The Real World and I went back to Nashville in the mid-'90s, they didn't understand. They didn't really get the fact that that I was, I was a country music singer. That's why they cast me on the reality show in the first place. Like they couldn't get that. That's not. They were confused by it all. How are we going to get this guy from MTV to be on country music radio? And what they didn't understand was I was a country music singer. That's why I put on reality TV. It wasn't vice versa. Okay, so they were just confused. They're like, how are we going to turn this reality TV star into a country music singer? And it's like, no, you don't get it at all. I was on reality because I am a country music star. They just didn't get it. And so nowadays, all these years later, they're looking for reality stars to be on the radio. Oh, you were on American Idol? You were on The Voice? Okay, well, instantly you've got a song on the radio now. But back in the mid-'90s, it was quite the opposite.
And I gotta be honest with you. I rather like it's not. I gotta say, I rather listen to '90s and early 2000s country right now. Early
Yeah,
2000s country because that's really good country.
yeah,
I'm not
really
sure.
different.
Yeah, it's really different. That's the real reason why I love your music, and it's not like it's a breath of fresh air to all the bro country and all the melting of genres.
Yeah,
I'm getting a little tired of this.
you can tell it's going to be a really bad country song when it starts with "Hey girl." Like every lousy country music song that's on the radio right now is like, "Hey girl." Like George Jones is turning over in his grave right now. It's
Oh
not
yeah,
country music. It's country pop, I guess, but it's just changed so much. I mean, basically, country music is '80s pop with a nasally country singer, and that's fine. I mean, that's what I am. But I like the '90s style and the more traditional style of country.
yeah. I really enjoy Garth Brooks' stuff. It's you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and
he
it's very
changed the
hard.
whole music scene.
Absolutely, he did. He did, and he is probably one of the artists I would love to have on this podcast.
Yeah, sure. I've met him several times. He's really friendly guy. He'd be hard to get on a podcast, but I hope you can.
But I hope so too. Fingers crossed. But we're not here to talk about Garth. We're here to talk about you. So
That's
I
right.
would
Who's
love.
this guy?
Yeah, I'm going to. Let's talk about your extended play. I ain't done singing yet. I would love to learn about the recording process from start to release.
Well, so I sang country music from the time I got done. Well, really before the real world, through the real world, and then right up until about the year 2000, I was touring and country music all over the United States and opening for big people. That's when I met Garth Brooks and met several big stars. I opened for some really big stars, and then a lot of shows on my own where people would come see the guy from the real world. And I thought I was going to be the next big sensation, but it just all really fell apart really quickly. My record label, Capitol Records, signed Trace Adkins and released me. And my booking agent, who was Garth Brooks' booking agent, had a heart attack and died. And my manager, who was Winona Judd's manager, got really drunk one night. We had a falling out, so I fired him. And that all happened within like a couple months of one another. And just, I had to start from scratch. And I thought, well, I'll just get it all back together. It all came together. It'll all come back together. And it just didn't. So I began leading music in church and doing student ministry and ended up doing that for the next 22 years, really. And not very long ago, about 2 years ago, I really just missed performing and singing country music. And I was in the shower and I said, just to myself, I guess you're done singing. And then I kind of got mad and I said, no, you're not done singing yet. And I thought, that's a song. Like, you need to write that song. I ain't done singing yet. I hadn't done a lot of songwriting. And I thought, that's a song right there. So we wrote that song, and that's the title of my EP. I ain't done singing yet. It's actually going to be my first single that we're going to release in mid-September. And it's great. It's actually great. You can actually get it now on jonbrennan.com and it's on Spotify, but we're going to release it to radio, re-release it to radio in the mid-September with a lot of promotion. And so um, I wrote another song on that EP called Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, because I just thought, that's where I'm spending all of my time. I'm living in Alabama. I spent years and years and years in Nashville, and I'm from Kentucky. I'm a Kentucky boy. So the line is, if you ever get around to looking for me, I'll be in Alabama, Tennessee, or Kentucky. And I'm proud of that one. It's a ditty. If you like '90s country, that's a very '90s Brooks and Dunn country song.
It's a
And
great
there's a
song.
well, thank you. It's going to be the second single, and the third one is a song called "I Just Stood There," which is when there used to be a network called TNN, the Nashville Network, on cable. And when I had gotten done with the Real World, they had John, the guy from the Real World, as one of their guests on the Crook and Chase show there on the Nashville Network. And the studio's torn down now; it's a parking lot. I was just there at the Grand Ole Opry, and I'm like, that's where the studio was. And when I was there that day, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I asked the security guard, I said, is the Grand Ole Opry House open? Because I'd love to go in there and see that. He said, well, I'm not allowed to tell you, but that side door is open and there's nobody in there. So if you go in there, then I didn't tell you you could. And kind of wink, wink, nod, nod. And I said, so I can go? And he didn't say nothing. He just turned around and walked away. And I went in there. I walked over in the Grand Ole Opry House. I walked out on the stage. The lights were not even on. There's just the emergency lights. So it was kind of dim. There wasn't a soul there. It was kind of spooky. And I went there. Stood in that circle on the center stage, And I just stood right there and soaked it up. I just looked around like, now what am I going to do? So I said, you got to sing a song. And I sang Amazing Grace. And so then I wrote the song about how I just stood in the center of the Grand Ole Opry and no one was there. And I just stood there and was like, got chills and nobody was there, but I sang anyway. And so that's the third song. It's called I Just Stood There. And I really haven't been doing any songwriting throughout my career like I had when I got that little boost of energy there that day in the shower and just said, no, I ain't done singing yet. That's what I love to do. So get back to it.
That's incredible because the thing is, I bet it was a little bit more powerful when you sang I Just Stood There when you performed at the Opry.
Well, I would like to sing that song on the Opry. The song I got to sing on the Grand Ole Opry 2 weeks ago, or almost a little bit more than a week ago, was a song called I'm Only in It for the Love, which is a remake of the John Conley 1983 #1 hit. And so John Conley heard my version of it and said, oh, that guy's good. And then I happened to be on Fox News about 3 weeks ago with Rachel Duffy, who's on Fox and Friends as a host. She was on the third season of the Real World San Francisco, and she was on the first challenge ever with me. And so I was up there singing on her daughter's 22-year-old daughter got married, and she asked me to sing in the wedding, and she said, I'm gonna try to get you on Fox and Friends while you're here. And so I sang the national anthem live on Fox News, and then the Grand Ole Opry called me, and all within like 3 weeks. So I've had like nothing musically going on for decades, literally. And then I've got this Homecoming on Paramount Plus. I got to be on Fox and Friends singing live, and now Grand Ole Opry and the re-release of my record. So I'm pretty excited.
All right, good things come to those who wait, and I'm so happy that this is happening for you, Jon.
Thank you so much.
One more song I would like to talk to you about was Here in the Real World.
Yeah. So way back in 1992, I say 92. That's when New York season was, but January of 93 is when we began shooting ours. So in about December of 92, I had a pretty strong indication I was going to be on the show. And one day I was watching country music videos, and Alan Jackson video for Midnight in Montgomery came on. And it's where he goes to Hank Williams' grave in Montgomery, Alabama. And he gets off his tour bus, and the old Silver Eagle tour buses, up there above the windshield, it has, the destination, or it used to say, like Alan Jackson, this is Alan Jackson's bus. The singers don't do that anymore. But his bus said The Real World. Well, he had just had this huge hit called Here in the Real World. And so I thought that was kind of clever that he named his bus The Real World. Okay. So it's the Midnight in Montgomery music video, but there's his bus that says The Real World. And I thought, man, I'm getting ready to be on this silly show called The Real World. So I should sing Alan Jackson's song because it was a recent hit at that time. Huge hit. I think it might have been his first breakthrough hit. I should sing that song Here in the Real World if I get on this silly show. And so I did. I sang Here in the Real World back in 93 on the show. And I thought, I sang it while I didn't have any country music hits while I was touring in the 90s. So I say, hey, how many people saw me on The Real World? And of course, everybody was like, yeah. And so I said, well, here's Alan Jackson's song Here in the Real World. So I sing it at every concert I ever did. And I thought, just record it. And, he needs more royalties. He needs my record sale royalties because, I'll probably sell 1 billion of them.
And I'm so glad that you did that. And I hope Mr. Jackson listened to that song.
I don't know that he did. But John Conley heard my version of his song and put me on the Grand Ole Opry. So I'm really thankful about that. I'd love to sing with Alan Jackson too.
I was just about ready to say, who are your dream collaborators, your singers, your songwriters, your musicians, your producers, and how would they enhance your sound, Jon?
Well, the magic happens in the studio. When you see singers on stage on concert, they're just replicating what was done in the studio. So the studio is where the magic happens. And so those record producers, you see them interviewed on TV, and they look like a banker. They don't look like, the cool rock star or country star, but they're the ones that are making the music that you really love, to be honest. And so I got to open for George Jones, and I don't know if you know a lot of he had a song in his in the latter half of his career called I Don't Need Your Rocking Chair. And then there was Travis Tritt and Garth Brooks, and all these people would echo what he said. He'd say, I don't need your rocking chair. And they go, I don't need your rocking chair. And they'd repeat what he said. So when we opened up for George Jones, he did Rockin' Chair, and his road manager on the side was like, "Go out there and do the echoes." I'm like, "I don't want to make him mad," and he said, "No, people do it all the time. The opening act can go out there and do it." So I went out there and repeated his line. I've got a picture of him. He looks over at me like, "Who's singing that?" And I mean, George Jones. Okay, now he's gone. He's not with us, but George Jones. And little quick story about George Jones. He was standing backstage, and I said, "Mr. Jones," this is in my hometown in Kentucky. And I said, "Mr. Jones, my name's Jon Brennan. I just opened up the show for you." He goes, "Oh, that's good." And he's listening to the band because they do a song before he comes out. And I was like, "Yeah, Mr. Jones, I collect guitar picks." He goes, "Oh, that's great. That's good. That's great. Oh, you want my guitar pick?" I said, "Yeah, yes, sir. I want your guitar pick." And he handed me the guitar pick he was holding, getting ready to go out on stage and use. And it says George Jones on one side, the signature, and on the other side it has his initials, GJ. And I've still got it. And so I don't play with it because I don't want to break it, but I've got it in my top drawer there in the bedroom. And so, yeah, that's a good George Jones. How many people can say you opened up for George Jones and he handed you the pick he was getting ready to use? So that's a big deal.
That's just amazing. Do not lose that pick.
I won't lose it. I won't lose it. And I got a ticket stub of where I opened for Alabama at the New York State Fair. And that was pretty awesome. Alabama was probably my favorite group ever. Still continues to be.
That's amazing. Awesome. So we got to start winding down our conversation, Jon. So what are your thoughts on social media? And like, have you been, what's your favorite social media channel to use and connect with fans?
Well, I'm on Twitter. My favorite is probably Instagram. And I have Facebook. I have started a YouTube channel. So I don't have a lot of YouTube subscribers. So I need all of your subscribers to find my YouTube channel and subscribe. But I'm at Jon Brennan _com on Twitter and Instagram. And I'm at Jon Brennan Country on Facebook. And my Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter all have the blue checks, so you know that it's me. People are actually impersonating me. I think they're robots, but make sure that you got the blue check, and then you know it's me. And I'd love to. Yeah. So they won't let you do JonBrennan.com because that's my website. So it's JonBrennan _com, and no H in John, just JON. Find me, follow me, and I'll tweet stuff and post.
Awesome. So if you had any chance to meet with musicians who are interested in are in the crossroads, do I go on a reality TV show or do I still stay the course? What advice would you share with them?
I get this question almost every interview, and I don't know the answer. Did the real world help you or hurt you? Would reality TV help or hurt an artist? It helped me because people knew who I was, and like I walked out on stage at the Grand Ole Opry the other night, and they're like, "Oh, Jon Brennan, we don't know who that is." And then I got to say, "Hey, before there was Survivor and the Kardashians, there was the Real World," and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's the guy from the Real World. That's who Jon Brennan is." And they're like, "Oh yeah, woo!" And so it helped me, but it actually, as I explained at your first question, Nashville didn't know what to do with me. I mean, reality TV was not a thing back then. I mean, we made reality TV. We created. I wasn't the first season, but I was the second reality show that ever existed. People just didn't get it, and they just didn't know what it was yet. And so, I think it scared them a little bit. Now it would be more helpful. Okay, and the winner of The Voice or American Idol instantly, gets a record deal and instantly is in the mainstream. But when I was trying to do it, it just didn't click for them. They were like, "No, we can't put a country music singer that was on MTV. That's just not going to work for fans." And what they didn't realize is it would have worked perfectly. Like, there is no line now between country and pop. It is country pop. And so that's not the world I lived in. That wasn't the real world for me in the mid 90s when I was trying to become a country sensation. But timing's everything, and maybe at 20 years old, that wasn't God's timing. But now I'm 47 and 3/4, and we'll see. A funny thing is when I was in Nashville, 19, 20 years old, they said, "Oh well, you're a little young, so get some life experiences under your belt and come back." So when I went back at 30, I'm like, "Hey, I really still trying to do this." They said, "Oh, we just signed an 18-year-old. We're looking for Leanne Rimes is 14 years old and Hunter Hayes, is 16. I'm just like, really? So that's kind of how it went for me.
Jon, but here's the thing. You're here, You're about ready to go. You're about ready to do a lot of stuff. I have so much faith in you that you're going to kick.
Well,
And I really hope that Bobby Bones listens to some of your stuff and puts you on the show with some of the stuff.
On the televised version, I'd love to be on his podcast. I've tweeted him a couple times and just to see if he'd go, who is this? And then he'd say, oh, that's the guy from the real world. I ought to talk to him. But I actually talked a little bit of smack to him during March Madness because he's a big Arkansas fan and I'm a big Kentucky fan. And now I'm living in Alabama, so it's just we're in the SEC. You know how we are. But I talked a little smack to him, so maybe he's mad. I don't know.
Don't worry. I think that the biggest thing you might have with working for you is Lunchbox. Lunchbox is a huge fan of reality TV, and
you're the third person who's told me he's a big. He actually must have said on the show that they were going around the room talking about what streaming service they liked best, and he said I like Paramount Plus because of the Real World Homecomings and All Stars, and so he's probably. And I followed Lunchbox, but I noticed he doesn't follow anyone back. He follows zero, and so I sent him a DM and didn't hear anything back. So I got to get a hold of Lunchbox and say, hey, put me on.
Awesome. So John, one more time, where can my audience connect with you on social media and find your music?
So I'm at Jon Brennan, JonBrennan_com on Instagram and Twitter. I have a Facebook page. It's verified. I think it's facebook.com/Jon Brennan Country. I'm on YouTube. I got YouTube. What else do I got? I'm trying to have it all. What else is there? I'm LinkedIn. Don't find me on LinkedIn. I don't. Pinterest? No. Twitter, Instagram's my biggest one, but I'm trying to beef up my Twitter. So if anybody, just look for the blue check, and that's me, JonBrennan, and I'll pop up. And actually, my profile picture is a picture of me, a black and white picture of me singing on the Grand Ole Opry. So.
Awesome. So, guys, if you missed an episode of the Jake's Take the Jacob Elyachar podcast, visit our channels on Apple Podcasts, Deezer, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Spotify, and Spreaker. Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. Now, are you on social media? Because I'm on social media too. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. John, Jake's Take is celebrating its 11th anniversary this year.
Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. If you want to catch more of my interviews with articles, including people from The Challenge and also from Big Brother, and also find out what's going on with America's Got Talent this season, visit jakes.shake.com. John, it was an honor and privilege to talk with you.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much.
Guys, thank you so much for taking time in your schedule to watch this and to listen to this. Until next time, thank you. Have a great one, everybody. Goodbye.